Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Vikings Spin. I'm your host, Jason Wisniewski, and I'm here with Purple Code Canada's Mike Castellino to break down the Vikings draft here after now we've had a little while to digest all the trades, the picks. So we're going to do a little analysis of that today. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Jason. I'm really excited. I'm doing really good. It's been a very fun, recap, thinking about all the draft stuff. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
All right. Well, we'll dive right into it here. And the first thing that comes to mind is the Vikings trading down from pick number 12 to pick 32. What are your thoughts about that? Who is on the board? Do you like the trade? Do you like the pick? What are your thoughts there?
There's two ways of looking at this. For me, I think it's a good thing as a whole, though I really liked Jameson Williams, and that would be a really, really fun way to kick off the O'Connell and Kwesi era, and it would have been exciting. I understand why they didn't take it because at the end of the day, they didn't value Kyle Hamilton or Jameson Williams as highly than getting into the second round multiple times and everything else they did. So I understood it, but it was very confusing on day one that they moved down 20 spots, didn't pick up a future first rounder, didn't pick up any future picks. It was all picks of this year's draft. It was a lot to take in off the initial reaction.
Yeah, I agree, and it's probably a lot of it was the shock of moving down, 20 picks. I'm watching the draft there, and they're getting ready to go into pick 12, and everybody's all excited, and then they move down, 20 spots. So we've got to wait forever for the pick, but yeah, I get both sides of the argument. Like, okay, so there was some exceptional value there. You know, how we as fans look at it. Maybe what do our boards look like? But then what does Quasi's board look like? Um, we'll see. I think a lot depends on how do guys like Jameson Williams and Kyle Hamilton pan out in the NFL. I guess we won't know that for a little while. But at the end of the day, they got some, granted it wasn't future draft capital, but they did get extra draft capital. And to get Lewis Cine, I really like the player. So I'll talk about that here with him. I see him as potentially being a day one starter at safety opposite Harrison Smith and the eventual replacement for Harrison Smith when he retires. Um, and I think at minimum he's going to rotate in with Bynum, but I expect Cine to win the job. Um, he's an excellent tackler. He has excellent range and coverage. I think he's going to make an impact day one and bring a lot of attitude to the secondary. What do you think about Lewis Cine?
So yeah, Lewis Cine, obviously safety out of Georgia. For me, I look at it kind of like this. He's obviously a big, strong physical player. So he's going to be a long-term Harrison Smith replacement anyway, which we needed. We talked about that prior in the couple mock drafts that we did, that safety was a bit of a need, when it came to long-term propositions, because we're not sure if Harrison was going to be here after the season. But just this year, I think that it was a good pick because I expect to see a lot of three safety looks anyway. We talked about that when we thought that the Vikings might take Kyle Hamilton. So it's just a different way of doing it. Different player, a lot faster player than Kyle Hamilton. I think that was part of it too. And I like Lewis Cine. He was one of the top players in Georgia's, national title winning defense. So I don't see why, it couldn't work out really well. The only question is, like you said, does Kyle Hamilton or Jameson Williams pan out? And that's the big question mark for me. Because even if Cine's really good, if he's not as good as Hamilton or Williams is a star wide receiver in the NFL, it's going to have people scratching their heads for years about Kwesi trading down 20 spots.
Yeah, that's what it really boils down to is, how do these players will always be compared because of this trade.
No, 100%. It's the weirdest thing. Like I did a spaces after the first round, and everyone agreed that this was a good selection. It's just the trade value wasn't there, but it is what it is.
Yep. Well, speaking of trade value, then I think the next trade turned out to be some really good value. Even though it was kind of like another punch in the nose for Vikings fans because they traded back again, but then they traded up immediately after trading back, almost immediately after trading back, and landed Andrew Booth Jr., the cornerback that you and I in the recording that that we lost, we had mocked Andrew Booth Jr. to the Vikings in round one. So to get him in round two was pretty fantastic.
Oh, I agree. Great hands all around corner. The only concern for me with Andrew, but I mean the only concern, he's got the height, he's got the physical ability, he can do everything. Can he stay healthy? That's the only question mark. He stays healthy at big 42. You are laughing. He's a tremendous value at that point. If he stays healthy, he could be as good as almost any corner in this entire class. You get him at 42. It was a great selection by Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. I think it helped solve the puzzle and why they took Lewis Seen as well. Now you've completely overhauled your secondary. I think it was a good decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Andrew Booth is going to be at minimum a solid starter, and a guy maybe with Pro Bowl potential because I don't even think he's reached his ceiling yet, but I think he can come in there. You've got Patrick Peterson and Cameron Dantzler as your starters, but he could give Dantzler a run for his money, but he will at minimum be in, I think, what they might use an outside cornerback rotation with Peterson's age and with Dantzler maybe mixing in some to have three guys fresh on the outside would be nice. And it also gives you some depth because it seems like every season there are cornerback injuries. So good to beef up that room.
Oh, I fully agree.
So next, now they netted another um, draft pick here in the second round. So they went with Ed Ingram. Um, you know, a bit of a controversial pick, but I'm gonna say this. After what happened with Jeff Gladney, it's probably not the best idea to jump to conclusions. The charges were allegations, they were dropped, so I'm not gonna really comment on his character without really knowing what happened. Um, we don't know that. Kwesi and the Vikings know that. Apparently, they're comfortable with what they learned from the situation. Um, Aside from that, the player, Ed Ingram is a very good football player. He's a very good pass protector. He played both guard spots in college and then showed out at the Senior Bowl and was voted as the number one offensive lineman by his peers at the Senior Bowl. Very interested to see what happens with Ed Ingram in training camp. Is he going to play guard? Is he going to play center? Um, I think the Vikings have wide open competition at, I would say, two. I'm going to say two interior spots. So we'll see what happens there. Your thoughts on Ed Ingram?
So I'll make this quick about the off the field stuff just quickly. I do want to say that it's a positive sign from a Vikings perspective that you have Durante Jones, who was at LSU last season as the defensive coordinator. Justin Jefferson was teammates with Ed Ingram at LSU. If there was any severe character concerns, it would have been mentioned. So the fact that that didn't happen, I think, is a positive sign. One thing I heard and I've seen from his days in LSU is that he won almost essentially the good guy award at LSU. This was something that was far in his past. And I try to say that you never could say never. And at the end of the day, these cases got dropped, right? The case got dropped. I want to say that that was just an unfortunate situation that he was in and that we move on. But on the player, big, strong pass blocker guard out of LSU, had fantastic tape at the Senior Bowl, one-on-one with first round pick Devontae Wyatt. I do think he was a bit of a reach at 60 or at 59th overall. The one thing I will say though is I don't care if he becomes a fantastic pass blocking guard, which is something the Vikings have not had in far too long. It's 100% worth taking him at 59. That's the way I look at it. He's just got to hit. He's got to hit.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Hey, at this point, they have just not had that, and to be able to get that, if I guess, if you had to go to the second round and get it, as long as you secured it, that's what's important. But moving on now to Brian Asamoah, the linebacker, in the third round. Initially, I was surprised that that linebacker was selected so high, but now the more that I think about it, the more it makes sense because, you have obviously you have Kendricks and Hicks, and they're your starters this season, but you do need to have long-term options. Hicks is not on a long-term deal, and Kendricks, with his contract, maybe there's concerns there, but Asamoah, he really brings it. Watching his film and just his athleticism, his ability to do it all as a modern linebacker, coverage, blitzing, stopping the run. I think he's a complete player, and now the more I look at it, I think it's a fantastic pick.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Brian Asamoah out of Oklahoma, he's got great coverage for a linebacker. I think he's the long-term Eric Kendricks replacement personally. That's why I don't mind the pick much at all. The one thing I will say is obviously similar to Kendricks when he came out of UCLA. He's a bit small. But again, if he works out, which I expect him to, they've had a fantastic first 2 days of the draft. You get your secondary completely rebuilt your defense long-term with replaces for Harrison Smith and Eric Kendricks. And then pick prior to Asamoah, you take Ed Ingram to be your finally find a long-term option at guard who is a good pass blocker. That would be a fantastic day and draft for the first 2 days of the draft if it hits. It's a big if, but I think it will. And I think Kwesi did a great job. It was weird at how we got there, but I was happy with how it happened more than how they got all the picks to be accumulated. It doesn't matter. They ended up coming out with 4 picks in the first 2 days when they only had 3, and I'm happy about it as a whole.
Yeah, if they hit, it could wind up to be as successful as that 2015 draft. I think that was like the best class we've had in a while was the 2015 class. So maybe this will rival it. Be a good way to kick things off with Kwesi.
I would agree. Same for KOC, Kevin O'Connell. If it happens with this team, if they can have a similar impact to the 2015 draft with this roster that they already have, they can really, really contend next season. It'll be exciting. It's a big if, but you hope.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Then they kicked off day 3. They traded a pick in next year's draft to get back up into the 4th round to select a Caleb Evans, the cornerback, another outside cornerback. Looking for depth there with Evans. Probably needs to develop his game a little bit more, but he's got the profile that they seem to want out there with this long, fast cornerback with Evans, and that's where they went. There's not the you have guys like Chris Boyd, Nate Harrison Hand, that they're not guaranteed anything. So I think they're going to bring this guy in. This is their guy that they want to develop here.
No, I fully agree, and I can guarantee off of the way Kwesi talked about him, right? Caleb Evans was Kwesi's draft crush. He's absolutely going to make the team. He's got all the measurables, plays with heart, and I agree with you. He's the depth piece this season, but he's a massive dude at 6'2" at corner. And if he pans out, you're really happy. But this is what day 3 is. We all thought that it's about measurables. You're taking chances. These guys are far from guarantees more than the first 2 days of the draft. But I like the pick of Evans. I would have preferred they didn't trade up personally and have to give up a future 4th to Cleveland. But it is what it is. Like, if Kwesi really wanted him and he thought that there was a chance he was going to lose him, then so be it.
Yep. You get what you get. You get what you want, really.
I liked it. I liked that he traded up to get his guys. I like that he was aggressive to get Booth and Evans, something Rick never did at the end.
Yeah. No, that was refreshing. After the trade downs, then he was just as willing to trade up, So then the next one there, and they had 2 5th-round picks, and the first one was Asezi Otomewo. Otomewo? Okay.
Mhm.
So that's now this guy was listed as a defensive end, but in this scheme would be a 5-tech or 3-tech. I think that's the plan for him, to be on the defensive line as a rotational piece. He was out of Minnesota, so there's a local familiarity with him. Some undeveloped pass rush skills, a solid run defender. What are you thinking about with this guy?
Funny enough, Atomo, I actually put in one of our mocks, and I know it was, I think, our second mock. So I predicted he would become a Viking. Funny enough, he's smart with the rush angles. Again, I honestly think he's going to be practice squad player of the season because he's so raw. Like, he needs work, and he needs to grow as a player. Like we talked about, the production really wasn't there at University of Minnesota. And yes, he has all the tools. This is a guy, though, for me personally, if he does crack the roster, is going to be mainly a special teams player. I'd be shocked if in his rookie season we see him much at all on the field defensively. Look, I hope I'm wrong. And I think he's a talented guy. He's got a lot of tools. And they said that after the flashes they saw on tape that they think they can get a lot out of him. But I'd be shocked if he had a significant impact aside from special teams day 1 as a rookie. So we'll see.
Yeah, usually, a day 3 defensive lineman, they usually take a year or 2 at least to develop, but he definitely has a skill set to do it. We'll see how he does in camp.
Yep.
And then the second 5th-round pick. Now this was an eyebrow raiser for some people, but for me, I'm thinking about it now, and maybe it's not so puzzling. But they go running back here with Ty Chandler, who's no slouch.
No.
Not at all. I mean, this is a productive college running back and is a fast running back. 4.38. He ran in the 40. He's explosive. He runs a good contact balance. He's able to do things that a scat back can do, like catch the ball out of the backfield. This guy, you have Alexander Madison's contract. His rookie contract is going to expire.
Yep.
Kene Nwangu has been a kick returner mostly, not much on offense. But this guy looks like a guy that is going to play on offense quite a bit, and also has special teams ability as a bonus. This can be a contingency plan for the future.
Well, I 100% think he cracks the roster, and I'm going to go as far to say, I think Madison, if there's injuries to running backs, is traded by the end of camp. I like what I've seen from Ty Chandler. He has good hands. We talked about 4.38 speed in the 40. I think this is a guy who is going to be the long-term running back 1 for the Vikings. I think Dalvin Cook after this season will be gone. I really do. You're not paying a running back $15 million like he's due to get next season. There's no way that happens. So he'll be gone next season. And like you talked about, Madison is a free agent at the end of the year. So even if he does stay on the roster this season, he's going to walk as a free agent because he's going to make starting money elsewhere. I really liked this pick the more I thought about it. Initially, I was a little bit annoyed that we took a running back, but it makes a lot of sense because long-term, it's really just Nwangu on this roster. So now you have Chandler and Nwangu. You have more of a plan where Nwangu will be more of the pass-catching guy long-term. And I think Chandler's going to be the meat and potatoes running back who could do it all, but is making a lot less than Dalvin Cook was.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Like you can't even say that this pick could, if this pick pans out, he could potentially replace Dalvin Cook. I mean, I love Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is the starting running back this season, no question about it. But yes, next year, are the Vikings going to continue under new leadership? I don't think they may not continue this trend of paying running backs. It hasn't really paid off in the NFL. So the
Nope.
successful teams don't pay running backs. So um, yeah, I absolutely think Ty Chandler could be a starter in the National Football League.
I agree. I think, again, I like Dalvin Cook. I think he's a great player. But Quincy's all about analytics. And they had no choice this year with Dalvin's contract because if you cut him, you were eating like, I think it was a ridiculous amount of money, like $6 or $7 million.
Right. There's
So they
no
were never
point.
going to do that.
Yep.
But next season, they can make him a post June 1st destination and almost eat nothing compared to what they would have had to eat this year. I really think it's over. And unless Delvin does something out of this world, and I mean out of this world, I don't see how he's back in a year's time. But we'll see. I love the pick of Chandler. I became a real fan.
Same here. And then that brings us to Vidarian Lowe, the offensive tackle. Here it was the first pick of the sixth round. This guy looks in my opinion, is a practice squad guy in his rookie season. Some people are saying that they think that he'll make the roster. Um, he the coaching staff mentioned he has guard flexibility, but he did play. He was a offensive tackle for the most part in college, and has the ability to play tackle. Um, I think you know. I think the plan is to play Oli Udo at the swing tackle, maybe Blake Brandel this season. But this guy is somebody that they like, and this could be their long term swing tackle going forward. What do you think about Vidarian Lowe?
No, Darian Lowe, to me, I agree with you. His rookie season will be on the practice squad. Even if he's a solid guard at the next level long term, it is long term. He's not going to contribute at all day one. Personally, I wasn't a real fan of this pick because I was a real fan of Donovan West, the center out of Arizona State. Would have much rather done that, had some actual competition for Bradbury. But look, at the end of the day, Aaron Lowe was a starting tackle at Illinois for, I think, 3 years. So he's got a lot of ability when it comes to experience, but he needs to grow. He's another guy who kind of reminds me of Oli Udo a little bit, funny enough, where he needs to grow and he's going to have to be a practice squad player that you let develop over the years and see what you get in its, couple years time.
Yep. The next one, Jalen Naylor, the second sixth round pick, I think has a chance to contribute as a punt returner as a rookie. So he's got that special teams experience. His draft stock was hurt by his injuries. He may have gone higher if he didn't have those injury issues. So his health will be under the microscope, um, once he hits the field. But I mean, the guy has the ability to take the top off the defense. Before his 40-yard dash, I think he was running in the 4.3s when he was doing the stopwatch in college. I don't know if he was banged up when he ran his 4.5 40, but regardless, the player that you watch on film is a fast player. He knows how to get open deep. He was very productive with the deep ball in college. So I think he's got a chance to make the roster as a fifth or sixth receiver, maybe contribute as a punt returner.
No, I 100% agree. I think that he will be punt returner one and take the spot that Dede Westbrook left behind. Of course, he's still a free agent, but he's not coming back. And Jalen, I really like this pick. In my opinion, I think Jalen Naylor, funny enough, is going to have the biggest impact out of all the day three guys. And he was one of the second last selection. Like you talked about, at Michigan State, the guy was a baller. It's really just injury concerns. And I looked at his stats, and of course, stats don't mean everything. But when you have very similar measurables, even across the board, really, with Stephon Diggs, I'm willing to say that I could see why Keenan McCardle banged the table for this guy and wanted him. I think this is a good pick. I think 100% he makes the roster. That's my bold take. And I'm going to go even further to say he's wide receiver 4 by the end of the season over ISM.
Yeah, he could be wide receiver 4 over ISM, just judging on, because he was a developed receiver in college. It's like you said, it's just the injury concern. So really, if he can get past that, yeah, he can ascend higher than, just the punt returner, 5 or 6 receiver. He could absolutely overtake ISM.
I like this pick. I really do. I'm excited to watch him, and once preseason comes around.
Yep, and that brings us to the final pick here was the tight end Nick Muse, 7th round pick. The Vikings tight end situation right now is pretty wide open. After Irv Smith Jr., you have a kind of a
Johnny
motley
Monk.
crew, behind him. So Muse, a 7th round tight end. I'm not expecting to make, I don't have a roster expectation for him. I think he will be on the practice squad. I don't think that Davidson will be around after training camp personally. But Muse, he has tools to develop as a reserve move tight end. So he may climb the depth chart, I think, in coming seasons. But I could see this as a spot where the Vikings bring in a veteran tight end to be tight end 2, and then you have Johnny Munt and Ben Ellefson as more blocking tight ends.
No, I don't disagree. I think that's a great point. Now, I'm going to take into account that they don't sign a tight end. I actually think, because he's got good hands, decent burst, it wouldn't shock me if he makes the team. And not necessarily because he balls out in preseason, but like you alluded to, Jason, that it's really just Irv Smith. Johnny Munt's going to make the team, but he's had a next to no offensive production receiving wise in the NFL so far with his days in the Rams. And Ben Ellefson is a blocking tight end that came from Jacksonville. And I agree with you 100% that Zach Davison, his days are done. It's finished. He was a Rick Spielman pick, all athleticism, no guaranteed production, and he struggled last preseason too. He would need to have a phenomenal preseason to not be gone and never, I don't think we'll ever see Davidson ever again after this preseason in a Vikings uniform.
No, I agree 100%. I think Muse is the guy that they're going to try to develop. And, if he shows out, in training camp and preseason, he does have a chance to make the roster, because there's not currently, there is no backup receiving option other than him. Davidson, I don't consider to be actual competition. So
he's like tight end 5. Like,
yeah.
it's sad. It is what it is. He's literally like tight end 5. But no, I think Muse, if they don't bring in a veteran tight end, actually cracks the roster. I can't believe I'm saying that, but if there's a guy that I trust to take a late round tight end, it's Wesley Adolfo-Mensa. Because obviously I'm not saying that he's going to be George Kittle by any means, but he took George Kittle. He talked about that multiple times throughout the press conference that he had a big say in taking him. Another guy coming out of the University of Iowa that did not have a ton of production and became a superstar at the NFL level. If Muse can be 1/3, 1/4 of George Kittle in the 7th round, you're laughing.
Absolutely agree. So, I know that the general rule of thumb here is that you can't grade drafts until 3 years later, but let's go with Mike Castellino's way too early draft grade.
B-. I think it filled all the voids. It hit all the boxes. They checked every box that they needed to check. The one thing I'll say is at this moment in time, there was no superstar wow effect, because there isn't a guy here that I see having a ridiculous impact on the offense. Now, in a year's time, because we're Vikings fans and we've had such bad guard play, we'll probably treat Ed Ingram like the next Jonathan Ogden. But, aside from that, I think Naylor will be a good player, but he still needs time to have a legitimate say in the offense. If he's wide receiver 4, you're still not going to see him a ton. And like I said, we talked about with Ty Chandler, he's a guy I think is more of a year away of having a significant impact, but I do see it.
Yeah,
I love the
no,
defensive picks. I
absolutely.
love the defensive picks.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a B minus too, just because of my uncertainty on trade value or impact of other players taken at where they could have selected. But I am happy with the players that they picked, especially the day one guys really have a chance here, with a potential future starting offensive lineman, or who knows, maybe he gets on the field this year. The two guys in the secondary are absolutely going to play. Seeing Booth Jr., they're playing day one a lot. Um, you know, you got a linebacker waiting in the wings, and then on day two, same for me. It's Chandler and Naylor who excite me the most on day two, as having legitimate futures, I think, to make an impact on this team. So yeah, I'll go with a B minus as well, and I can't wait to see these guys on the field.
I want to ask you one last question quickly, Jace, before we end these, because I found a way to predict it last year that the Vikings actually would look at Rashad Breeland. So let's talk about this just quickly on the fly. If you can pick one free agent that's available, who would you like to see the Vikings go after if they if they find money to crack the code and have the cap space sign one more significant free agent? Who is it?
Yeah, I mean, and that is a possibility, with this kicker competition that they've got going on now, and the speculation about CJ Ham. For me, it's obviously it's still JC Treader. I don't know how realistic that is, or Matt Paradise. I'd like to see them do that. It's hard to know without really knowing what their plan is at center. They could move one of these veterans, or maybe it's Ingram. Who knows? I don't know that. But if it's not the center, it actually wouldn't shock me if it's a tight end, like I wouldn't even rule out Kyle Rudolph
Ebron?
or Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron would be someone I would like to see. Those would be the names for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm the same. It's the unrealistic dream scenario of JC Treader. I just don't see where the money comes from. But if they made that work, wow, what a difference the offensive line would have. What an overhaul that would be. And I would like Ebron. If they're going to bring in a tight end, he's a guy who has good hands, solid blocker, big dude, and he's not going to cost a ton. But I like the wild card that you threw out there on Matt Paradis. He'll be dirt cheap, and has had a ton of production in his career at the position of center when he was with Carolina. And I can't remember I think it was Denver that he played with previously.
Yep.
He would be a guy that you can't count out. If they signed him for the cheap, he'll absolutely beat out Garrett Bradbury, just because Bradbury, he can't start this year. Like, I'm sticking with that. If he's our starter next year, I'm not going to be a happy camper.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be really interesting to see if they don't add anybody, what is that competition going to look like? There are options. There's Chris Reed, there's Ed Ingram, there's Wyatt Davis. There's plenty to choose from to give him some competition, but will they? We'll see.
Yep.
All right, Mike. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining me to break this all down. And yeah, we're going to see how this unfolds here very shortly.
Skull.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next time. All right, Mike.